The evening air carried a hint of jasmine as Lily hurried up the winding driveway of the Westbrook estate. Her black uniform shoes pinched her toes, a reminder that she had bought them secondhand. The enormous mansion loomed ahead, its windows glowing like golden eyes against the twilight sky. Tonight was one of the biggest events of the year, Robert Westbrook's annual charity gala, and Lily was already running 10 minutes late. "You've finally decided to join us," said the catering manager, checking his watch as Lily rushed through the service entrance. "Get your apron on and start with the champagne trays in the East Wing." "Sorry, my bus was delayed," Lily explained, tying the crisp white apron around her waist. She didn't mention that she had come directly from her afternoon class at the community college, where she was studying music theory. That part of her life felt worlds away from the glittering reality of the Westbrook mansion. At 25, Lily's life had become a careful balancing act. By day, she attended classes when she could afford the tuition. By night, she worked whatever service jobs would hire her, from restaurants to catering gigs like this one. The bills for her grandmother's care facility didn't pay themselves. The grand ballroom of the Westbrook mansion buzzed with conversation as guests in designer clothes sipped champagne and nibbled on tiny, artful appetizers. Lily kept her eyes down, moving smoothly between clusters of people with her silver tray held high. She had learned long ago that the best servers were the invisible ones. "Another glass?" "Please," said a woman dripping in diamonds, not bothering to look at Lily as she plucked a flute from the tray. "Of course, ma'am," Lily replied with a practiced smile. She had been working for nearly 2 hours, her feet throbbing in the tight shoes when she heard the first notes of a piano. The sound floated across the room, pulling at something deep inside her chest. Without thinking, she began to hum along to Debussy's Clair de Lune, a piece she had once known by heart. "You know this piece." The voice startled her. Lily turned to find Robert Westbrook himself standing beside her, eyebrows raised in mild surprise. In his early 50s, Westbrook had the confident posture of a man accustomed to power. His tech company had made him one of the richest men in the state, and his reputation for eccentricity was well known. "Yes, sir, it's beautiful," Lily responded, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. She hadn't realized she'd been humming aloud. Westbrook tilted his head, studying her with unexpected intensity. "You didn't just recognize it. Your humming followed the difficult middle passage perfectly." Lily shifted uncomfortably. The last thing she needed was attention from the host. "Would you like some champagne, sir?" But Westbrook wasn't interested in drinks. "Do you play?" he asked, gesturing toward the grand piano at the far end of the room, where an older gentleman in a tuxedo was now finishing the piece. "I used to," Lily admitted, trying to step back into the crowd. "If you'll excuse me, I need to—" "Harold!" Westbrook called out suddenly, waving to a man in a dark suit who appeared to be managing the event. "Who's scheduled after Preston finishes?" Harold consulted his tablet. "There's a 30-minute break before the string quartet arrives, sir." Westbrook turned back to Lily, a strange gleam in his eyes. "Perfect timing, sir." Lily clutched her now empty tray like a shield. "My pianist needs a break, and I'm thinking my guests might enjoy something unexpected." Westbrook's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'd like you to play the next set." Lily felt her stomach drop. "That's not possible. I'm working and I haven't played seriously in years." "I'll pay you," Westbrook said, as if that solved everything. "Double your night's wages. I appreciate the offer, but—" "Triple," he interrupted. "Triple your pay for 15 minutes at that piano." The catering manager appeared at Lily's elbow, having overheard the exchange. "Mr. Westbrook, is there a problem with the service?" "Not at all," Westbrook replied. "I'm simply trying to hire your server for a brief musical interlude." The manager looked confused but nodded deferentially. "Whatever you wish, sir. We're here to accommodate." Lily felt trapped. The money Westbrook offered would cover next month's payment for her grandmother's care facility. But the thought of playing in front of all these wealthy, judgmental people made her hands tremble. She hadn't touched a piano in public since the accident that took her parents 4 years ago. "I don't think this is a good idea," she said quietly. Westbrook leaned closer. "Consider it part of the service tonight," he said, his voice pleasant but firm. "I'm hosting a charity event for arts education after all. What better way to demonstrate the importance of music than with a surprise performance?" The manager gave Lily a pointed look that clearly said, "Don't mess this up for the company." 15 minutes, Westbrook repeated. And I'll make it 4 times your night's pay. With that kind of money, Lily could not only pay for her grandmother's care, but also register for next semester's classes without taking out another loan. The thought made her dizzy with possibility. Okay, she finally said, her voice barely audible, but I'll need a moment to prepare. Westbrook's face broke into a triumphant grin. Excellent. Harold, please show— I'm sorry, what's your name? Lily, she replied. Show Lily to the powder room to freshen up and then to the piano in 5 minutes. In the ornate powder room, Lily stared at her reflection in the gilt-edged mirror. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical bun, her face flushed with anxiety. What was she thinking, agreeing to this? She hadn't performed in front of an audience since the recital just before the accident. After losing her parents, the music had seemed to dry up inside her, like a river suddenly diverted underground. She splashed cold water on her face, trying to calm her racing heart. The money, she reminded herself. Think about what that money could do. When Harold knocked on the door, Lily followed him back to the ballroom on legs that felt like they might give way beneath her. The previous pianist was just finishing his set, and Westbrook was now standing near the piano, champagne glass in hand. As Lily approached, Westbrook tapped his glass with a silver spoon, calling for attention. The room gradually quieted, curious faces turning toward him. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, his voice carrying easily across the space. As you know, tonight's gala benefits arts education in our public schools. We've been discussing the transformative power of music all evening, and now, I'm pleased to offer you a demonstration. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs as dozens of eyes turned toward her, taking in her server's uniform with confusion. This young woman works for our catering company, Westbrook continued, gesturing toward Lily. But when I overheard her humming along to Debussy's Clair de Lune with perfect pitch, I suspected there might be more to her than meets the eye. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lily could feel judgment in their stares, could almost hear their thoughts. Who does she think she is? A server playing for us. I've asked her to favor us with a brief performance, Westbrook finished, stepping aside with a flourish that indicated the piano was now hers. The elderly pianist gave Lily an encouraging nod as he vacated the bench. The action's a bit stiff on the upper register, he whispered as he passed. Good luck, dear. Lily moved toward the gleaming grand piano as if approaching her own execution. It was a Steinway, probably worth more than she would earn in 10 years. The polished black surface reflected the chandelier lights like stars. As she sat down, adjusting the bench with trembling hands, she became acutely aware of the silence in the room. The wealthy guests watched with expressions ranging from amusement to disdain. In the corner, she could see the other servers watching wide-eyed, probably wondering if she had lost her mind. Lily placed her fingers on the cool ivory keys, trying to remember how to breathe. What should she play? Her mind went blank, years of training suddenly evaporating under the heat of scrutiny. Then she thought of her grandmother, who had sacrificed so much to pay for those childhood piano lessons, who had sat beside her for hours as she practiced, believing in her talent even when Lily didn't. Her grandmother, who now sometimes didn't remember Lily's name, but still lit up whenever Lily hummed old songs at her bedside. For her, then. This would be for her. Lily closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to play. Her fingers found Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major Opera 9 No. 2, a piece that had always felt like coming home. The first notes were hesitant, slightly uneven, but as the melody unfolded, something shifted inside her. The room around her seemed to fade, the stares of the guests becoming distant and unimportant. It had been so long, yet her muscles remembered what her conscious mind had tried to forget. The music flowed through her, each phrase connecting to the next like a conversation with an old friend. As she reached the middle section, her confidence grew, her body swaying slightly with the crescendos and diminuendos. For the first time in 4 years, Lily let herself feel the full power of the music, its questions, its comfort, its beauty. Tears pricked at her closed eyelids, but she kept playing, pouring everything she couldn't say into the notes that filled the vast room. She had forgotten what this felt like, to be carried by something larger than herself, to speak in a language that needed no words, to remember who she had been before grief had closed that door. As the final notes of the nocturne faded into silence, Lily opened her eyes, suddenly remembering where she was. The room had gone completely still. Dozens of faces stared at her with expressions she couldn't read. Had she made a terrible mistake? Should she apologize? Stand up and go back to serving champagne as if nothing had happened? And then, from somewhere in the back of the room, someone began to clap. The single pair of hands clapping soon multiplied, spreading through the room like wildfire until the entire ballroom thundered with applause. Lily remained frozen on the piano bench, unable to process what was happening. These people, these wealthy, important people, were standing for her, a catering server who hadn't touched a piano in years. Robert Westbrook's face had transformed. The smug certainty was gone, replaced by genuine amazement as he approached the piano. "That was extraordinary," he said, his voice carrying above the continuing applause. Lily's cheeks burned. She wasn't sure if she should stand, bow, or simply run from the room. She settled for a small nod, her hands still resting on the keys as if they belonged there. "Where did you study?" a woman in a midnight blue gown asked, stepping forward from the crowd. I mean not formally," Lily stammered. "I had lessons from age 6 until—" She trailed off, unwilling to share her personal tragedy with these strangers. "Until?" Westbrook prompted. Lily swallowed hard. "Until I couldn't anymore." Something in her tone must have communicated that this wasn't a topic for further discussion, because Westbrook simply nodded and turned to address his guests. "Ladies and gentlemen, I believe this is precisely why we're all here tonight, to support arts education that can nurture talent like what we've just witnessed." He raised his champagne glass. "To music and to—" "I'm sorry, I didn't catch your full name." "Lily Chen," she answered softly. "To Lily Chen," Westbrook announced, "and to the power of unexpected beauty." The guests raised their glasses in a toast that left Lily dizzy with disbelief. This wasn't how the evening was supposed to go. She was meant to serve drinks, remain invisible, collect her pay, and leave. Instead, she had somehow become the centerpiece of Westbrook's event. As she stood to leave the piano, the woman in the midnight blue gown approached her directly. "I'm Victoria Reynolds," she said, extending a hand adorned with a single elegant ring. "I serve on the board of the City Symphony." Lily shook her hand, trying to hide how much her own was trembling. "It's nice to meet you." "That was Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major," Victoria continued. "A piece many pianists play but few truly understand. You played it as if you were having a conversation with Chopin himself." "Thank you," Lily said, unsure how else to respond to such high praise. Victoria studied her with keen eyes. "You said you haven't had formal training, but that's not entirely true, is it?" Lily hesitated. Her past wasn't something she discussed with anyone, let alone strangers at a charity gala. But there was something about Victoria's direct gaze that made Lily feel she would see through any attempt at deflection. "I was accepted to the Conservatory of Music when I was 17, she admitted quietly. "I had a scholarship, but then life happened. I never went." Victoria nodded as if this confirmed something she had already guessed. "And now you work catering events." It wasn't a question, but Lily answered anyway. "Among other things, I also take classes when I can afford them." "In music?" "Yes, theory mostly. Performance classes are too painful, too reminiscent of what could have been. Not really my focus anymore." Before Victoria could respond, the catering manager appeared at Lily's side, his expression a mix of confusion and irritation. "Ms. Chen, if you're finished, we need help in the kitchen." Victoria smoothly interjected, "Actually, I'd like to speak with Lily for a few more minutes, if that's possible." She turned to Westbrook, who was still nearby. "Robert, you wouldn't mind if I borrowed your discovery for a short while, would you?" Westbrook waved a hand magnanimously. "By all means. I think we can spare her from serving duties after that performance." He turned to the catering manager. "I'll compensate your company for the inconvenience, of course." The manager's irritation instantly transformed into accommodating smiles. "Of course, Mr. Westbrook. Take all the time you need, Ms. Chen." Lily found herself being guided to a quiet corner of the vast room, away from the main crowd. Victoria gestured to 2 chairs partially hidden behind a large floral arrangement. "Please sit," she said. "I promise I won't keep you long." Lily perched on the edge of the chair, still acutely aware of her server's uniform and how out of place she was in this setting. "Is there something specific you wanted to discuss?" Victoria leaned forward slightly. I'm curious about your story, Lily. It's not every day one encounters someone with your level of talent serving canapes. It's just a job, Lily said defensively. There's no shame in honest work. I never suggested there was, Victoria replied calmly. But there is something tragic about a gift like yours going unused. The words stung because they echoed thoughts Lily had ruthlessly suppressed for years. I still play sometimes, she said, though it wasn't entirely true. The upright piano in her small apartment had gone largely untouched, serving more as a memorial to her past than an instrument. Not like that, you don't, Victoria said, gesturing toward the grand piano. That wasn't the playing of someone who sometimes practices. For those few minutes, you were completely alive in the music. Lily looked down at her hands. Server's hands now, slightly rough from work, nails kept short and practical. But they had remembered. They had known what to do when she placed them on the keys, as if they had been waiting all this time for the chance. I had a life planned once, Lily said quietly. My parents sacrificed everything for my lessons. When they died, it felt wrong to continue, like I was betraying their memory by pursuing something so selfish when there were bills to pay, my grandmother to take care of. Victoria was silent for a moment, absorbing this. And your grandmother? She's still with you? Lily nodded. She raised me after my parents emigrated here. She's in a care facility now. Early-stage dementia. The words caught in her throat. Some days she remembers me, some days she doesn't, but she always responds to music. So you play for her? I hum, Lily corrected. Or play recordings. It's easier. Victoria seemed to understand what Lily wasn't saying, that playing was too painful, too connected to loss. The conservatory would still take you, you know. Talent like yours doesn't come along often. Lily gave a short, humorless laugh. I'm 25. Too old to start a career as a concert pianist even if I could afford it, which I can't. Age is less relevant than you might think, Victoria countered. And as for affording it, she reached into a small clutch purse and extracted a business card. The symphony has scholarship programs for exceptional cases. We also have paid positions for accompanists, rehearsal pianists, and music theory tutors. Lily stared at the card as if it might burn her fingers. I don't understand. Why would you offer this to a complete stranger? Victoria's expression softened. Because 30 years ago I was discovered playing guitar in a coffee shop when my scholarship had fallen through. Someone took a chance on me and it changed my life. Sometimes talent needs more than just recognition. It needs practical help. Before Lily could respond, a commotion near the entrance to the ballroom caught their attention. A group of guests had gathered around someone who had just arrived, their excited chatter rising above the general noise of the party. Ah, Victoria said, glancing at her watch. That would be Thomas Wu. He's giving a special performance at midnight, the main attraction of the evening. Thomas Wu, Lily repeated, recognition flickering in her eyes. The pianist? Victoria nodded. One of the most celebrated classical pianists of our time. He rarely does private events, but he and Robert go way back. Lily felt suddenly small again, her moment in the spotlight rightfully eclipsed by the arrival of a true professional. This was a world she had once dreamed of entering, but now it felt as distant as another planet. I should get back to work, she said, standing abruptly. Thank you for the card, Ms. Reynolds, but I don't think— Keep it, Victoria interrupted gently. You don't have to decide anything now. Just promise you'll think about it. Lily slipped the card into her apron pocket, certain she would never use it, but unable to refuse the kindness behind the gesture. I should go. As she turned to leave, Victoria added, Mr. Wu is giving a master class tomorrow at the Symphony Hall. It's for students, but I could arrange for you to attend if you're interested. For a brief moment, Lily allowed herself to imagine it, sitting in a hall filled with music, learning from a master, reconnecting with the world she had abandoned. The longing that surged through her was so intense it was almost physical pain. I work tomorrow, she said, the words like stones dropping from her mouth. Victoria just smiled. The class is at 4. I'll leave your name at the door just in case. As Lily made her way back to the kitchen, her mind was a storm of conflicting emotions. The thrill of playing still hummed in her veins alongside the fear of hoping for too much. She had built walls around her heart for a reason. Dreams were luxury items she couldn't afford. In the kitchen, the other servers looked at her with new eyes. some curious, some resentful of the attention she had received. The manager assigned her to dishwashing duty for the remainder of the evening, either as punishment for her unexpected spotlight or perhaps as a kindness, keeping her away from the gossiping guests. As she plunged her hands into soapy water, Lily tried to focus on practical matters. The money Westbrook had promised would help with next month's bills. That was what mattered, not the phantom sensation still lingering in her fingertips or the business card burning a hole in her pocket. Yet as midnight approached, she found herself pausing in her work, listening for the sound of Thomas Wu's performance floating back from the ballroom. And despite her best efforts, something long dormant stirred within her, a flicker of possibility, a whisper of what might still be. Lily didn't plan to go to the master class. She had the morning shift at Joe's diner, and her feet ached from standing all night at Westbrook's party. She needed to do laundry, call the care facility about her grandmother's medication, and study for her music theory test. There was no time for indulging in fantasies about a different life. And yet at 3:45 the next afternoon, she found herself standing outside Symphony Hall, her hair still damp from a rushed shower, wearing the nicest outfit she owned, a simple navy blue dress she'd found at a thrift store. She'd told herself she was just curious, that she would sit in the back, listen for a few minutes, and then leave. No one would even notice her. But as she approached the entrance, her courage faltered. The building itself seemed to judge her, with its imposing columns and grand staircase. This was a temple of high culture, not a place for someone like her. Just as she was about to turn away, a voice called out, "Lily! Lily Chen!" Victoria Reynolds was walking up the stairs, a leather portfolio tucked under her arm. She looked different in daylight, more approachable in a simple blouse and pants, her hair pulled back in a practical bun. "You came?" Victoria said, genuine pleasure in her voice. "I'm glad. I was just passing by," Lily lied. "I'm not sure if I should—" "Nonsense," Victoria interrupted, taking Lily's arm gently but firmly. "Your name is on the list and the class is about to start." Before Lily could protest further, she was being guided through the grand doors and into the cool interior of Symphony Hall. The lobby was buzzing with young music students, most carrying instrument cases, all looking far more confident about being there than Lily felt. Victoria led her through the crowd to a smaller recital hall. "We're using the Kleinman room today. It's more intimate for master classes." Inside, about 30 chairs were arranged in a semicircle around a magnificent Bösendorfer grand piano. Most of the seats were already taken by students clutching notebooks and sheet music. At the piano sat Thomas Wu, leafing through scores and making notes with a pencil. In person, Wu was smaller than Lily had imagined, with a quiet intensity that seemed to create a bubble of concentration around him. His fingers moved constantly, playing silent patterns on his leg as he thought. "We'll sit in the back," Victoria whispered, guiding Lily to 2 empty chairs in the last row. As they settled in, Wu looked up and began to speak. His voice was soft but carried easily through the room. "Music is not about perfection," he said, surprising Lily. "It's about communication. You can play every note correctly and still say nothing. Or you can play imperfectly but speak directly to the heart." He gestured to a young man in the front row. "Kevin, you're first." A nervous-looking student took his place at the piano and began to play the first movement of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. His technique was flawless, his dynamics carefully observed. Lily found herself counting the beats in her head, noting how precisely he maintained the tempo. When he finished, Wu nodded thoughtfully. "Very clean. Now may I show you something?" The student vacated the bench and Wu sat down. Without any preamble, he began to play the same piece. But where the student's performance had been correct, Wu's was alive. He stretched certain phrases, creating tension and release. He let some notes whisper while others sang out. The familiar piece suddenly felt like a story being told specifically to each person in the room. Lily leaned forward unconsciously, drawn in by the subtle magic Wu was creating. She could feel the goosebumps rising on her arms as the music washed over her. "You see?" Wu said when he finished, turning to the student. "The notes are an alphabet. You must use them to form words, sentences, paragraphs, to speak." For the next hour, Wu worked with 5 different students. With each one, he focused not on technique, though he occasionally corrected finger positions or posture, but on expression, on finding the voice within the music. He was demanding but kind, pushing each student to dig deeper, to find the emotional truth behind the notes on the page. Lily was so absorbed in the lessons that she barely noticed Victoria occasionally glancing at her, noting the way Lily's hands moved slightly in her lap, unconsciously playing along with the students. After the fifth student, Wu stood and stretched his back. "We have time for one more. I understand we have a guest today who might be willing to play for us." He looked directly at the back row. "Ms. Chen?" Lily froze. How did he know her name? She shot an accusatory glance at Victoria, who shrugged apologetically. "I may have mentioned your performance to Thomas this morning," Victoria admitted quietly. Lily shook her head frantically.
"I can't. I'm not prepared."
"I don't have any music with me." "I'm sure you know something by heart," Wu said, his voice carrying easily to where she sat. "Please join us." Every head in the room turned to look at her. Lily felt her face burning, her heart pounding so hard she was certain everyone could hear it. This was nothing like playing at Westbrook's party, where no one had expected anything from her. Here in this room full of serious students and under the gaze of a renowned pianist, the stakes felt impossibly high. "I'm not a student," she said, her voice barely audible. "We are all students." Wu replied simply, "Every day I'm still a student of music." There was no graceful way out. Refusing would draw more attention than complying. Slowly, Lily rose from her seat and made her way to the front of the room. Her legs felt like they might give way beneath her at any moment. As she sat at the piano, she placed her hands on the keys and tried to steady her breathing. What should she play? Her mind raced through pieces she had once known by heart. Most felt too rusty, too uncertain after years of neglect. Then she remembered her grandmother's favorite, Debussy's Reverie, a piece that had once been as familiar to Lily as her own heartbeat. Before she could second-guess herself, she began to play. The first few notes came tentatively, her fingers finding their way back to a path once well-traveled, but now overgrown. But as the melody unfolded, muscle memory took over. The dreamy, flowing quality of the piece suited her emotional state, a mixture of anxiety and yearning, of hesitation and hope. She kept her eyes closed, focusing only on the music, on the conversation between her fingers and the keys. Unlike at Westbrook's party, where she had played with raw emotion, here she tried to shape each phrase deliberately, to honor the composer's intentions while finding her own voice within the framework he had created. When she finished, there was a moment of complete silence. Lily opened her eyes, afraid to see judgment or disappointment on Wu's face. Instead, she found him watching her with an expression of quiet interest. "You haven't played regularly in a long time," he said. It wasn't a question. Lily shook her head. 4 years. Wu nodded as if confirming something to himself. "Yet the music is still inside you." He moved to stand beside the piano. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the bench. Lily quickly stood, making room for him. Instead of sitting, however, Wu pulled up a nearby chair. "Sit," he instructed. When she hesitantly obeyed, he positioned himself where he could see her hands. "Play the opening again, just the first 8 measures." Nervously, Lily began the piece once more. After a few notes, Wu gently touched her wrist. "You're playing from your fingers only," he said. "Remember to use your whole arm, your whole body." He demonstrated a flowing motion. The weight should transfer naturally. For the next 15 minutes, to Lily's astonishment, Thomas Wu gave her an impromptu lesson in front of the entire class. He corrected her hand position, reminded her about proper breathing, and showed her how slight adjustments in timing could transform a phrase from merely pretty to deeply moving. The other students watched in rapt attention as Wu treated this unknown woman, clearly not a conservatory student, with the same serious consideration he had given them. Nobody whispered or fidgeted. The room was focused entirely on the interaction between the master pianist and the reluctant server who had somehow found herself in his class. Music is never really forgotten, Wu told her as the lesson concluded. It becomes part of you. Even when you stop playing, it continues to shape how you hear the world. He studied her face for a moment. But it is a conversation that goes both ways. The music also needs you, your experiences, your understanding, your unique voice. Victoria appeared at Lily's side as the class ended and students began gathering their belongings. "What did I tell you?" she said, her eyes bright with vindication. Exceptional cases merit exceptional opportunities. Lily felt dazed, unable to process what had just happened. Thomas Wu had not only heard her play but had taken the time to teach her. It was like having a casual conversation with a movie star, or getting batting tips from a baseball legend. As they exited the recital hall, Wu approached them carrying his leather music satchel. "Ms. Chen," he said with a small bow, "thank you for playing today. Victoria tells me you work rather than study currently." "Yes," Lily managed, still feeling slightly unreal. "I have responsibilities." Wu nodded gravely. "Of course. We all do." He glanced at Victoria, then back to Lily. "I understand completely why that must be your priority. But perhaps there is room for both in your life." "Thomas is starting a community outreach program," Victoria explained, "teaching music in underserved areas. There are paid positions for instructors." "I'm not qualified to teach," Lily protested. "On the contrary," Wu replied. "Sometimes those who have had to fight for their music make the most dedicated teachers." He handed her a card. "Think about it. Call me if you're interested." As he walked away, Lily stared at the card in her hand, the second business card she'd received in 24 hours, each representing a door she had believed permanently closed to her. "I don't understand what's happening," she said to Victoria. "Yesterday I was just a server. Today I'm getting offers from the Symphony Board and Thomas Wu." Victoria smiled. "Yesterday you were a server who happened to be an extraordinary pianist. Today people are simply recognizing what was already true." As they stepped outside into the late afternoon sunlight, Lily's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from her supervisor at Joe's Diner. "You're famous!" "Someone posted a video of you playing piano at some rich guy's party. It's all over social media. The boss wants to know if you'll play at the diner on Friday nights. Says he'll pay extra." Attached was a link to a video. Somehow, someone at Westbrook's party had recorded her performance and posted it online. The video already had thousands of views. Lily looked up from her phone to find Victoria watching her with a knowing smile. "Life has a strange way of circling back to what matters," Victoria said. "The question is whether you're brave enough to follow where it leads." The video changed everything and nothing at once. Within a week, Lily had become a minor local celebrity. "Waitress with hidden talent stuns millionaire's party," read one headline. "Server to Steinway, the viral piano sensation claimed another." Regular customers at Joe's Diner asked for selfies. Strangers stopped her on the street. "You should see the comments," her coworker Debbie told her during a slow afternoon shift, scrolling through her phone. "People are saying you should be on one of those talent shows." Lily wiped down a table, trying to ignore the strange new attention. "I'm not interested in being on TV. Are you kidding? This could be your big break. My cousin was on one of those singing competitions, and even though she got eliminated in the third round, she still got a job singing on a cruise ship." The comparison made Lily wince. She wasn't looking for 15 minutes of fame or a gig entertaining tourists. Music had once been her calling, her deepest form of expression, not a ticket to fleeting celebrity. "The diner's offering you Friday night performances," Debbie continued. "The boss says we could charge a cover fee. He's already talking about getting an actual piano instead of that electronic keyboard in storage." The idea of playing at the diner made Lily's stomach twist. Would she become a novelty act? Something customers could watch while eating their burgers? The thought felt demeaning, yet she couldn't afford to turn down the extra income. "I'll think about it," she said. The same response she'd given to Victoria Reynolds and Thomas Wu. That evening, Lily visited her grandmother at the care facility. The small room was cheerful enough, with family photos on the walls and a vase of fresh flowers on the bedside table. But it still felt institutional, with its medical equipment and the faint antiseptic smell that no amount of air freshener could disguise. "Grandma, it's me, Lily," she said, settling into the visitor's chair. Her grandmother looked up from the television with a smile of recognition. It was a good day then. "Lily Flower, you look tired." "I'm fine," Lily assured her. "Just busy with work. Still at that restaurant. And catering. And studying." Lily hesitated, then added, "And maybe some new opportunities." What kind of opportunities? How could she explain the bizarre turn her life had taken? That strangers on the internet were debating her potential? That renowned musicians were suddenly offering her chances she'd long ago stopped dreaming about? Instead, she took out her phone. "Someone recorded me playing piano at an event. I thought you might want to see it." She held up the screen, showing the video that had now been viewed over 100,000 times. Her grandmother's eyes widened as she watched Lily at the grand piano, lost in Chopin's Nocturne. When the video ended, her grandmother was silent, tears welling in her eyes. "You're playing again," she whispered. "Just that once," Lily corrected her. "For a job." Her grandmother reached for her hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "Your mother would be so happy. She always said your music would take you places." The words pierced Lily's heart. "I'm not going anywhere, Grandma. I'm staying right here taking care of you." "Is that why you stopped? Because of me?" "No," Lily said quickly. "Because of practical things. Bills, rent, school." Her grandmother's face clouded with a familiar confusion, and Lily could see she was starting to drift. These moments of clarity never lasted long. "Your mother loved when you played her lullaby," her grandmother said, now speaking of Lily's mother as if she were a child again, the timeline of her memory shifting unpredictably. "The one about the moon. Claire de Lune," Lily supplied softly. "I remember." On the way home, Lily's phone buzzed with a text from Victoria Reynolds. "Symphony board meeting tomorrow. We're discussing scholarship program. Please call me." Lily put the phone away without responding. The weight of other people's expectations was becoming suffocating. Everyone seemed to want something from her. Her boss, Victoria, even the strangers commenting on her video. They all had opinions about what she should do with her talent, with her life. But what did she want? The question followed her home to her tiny apartment, where the upright piano sat against the wall, draped with a cloth cover she hadn't removed in years. On impulse, Lily pulled off the cover, sending up a cloud of dust that made her sneeze. The dark wood was dull with neglect, but when she tentatively lifted the lid, the key still gleamed white and black, patient and waiting. She sat on the bench, her body remembering the correct posture before her mind could object. Her fingers found middle C, then moved up the scale, testing. The piano needed tuning badly. Several keys noticeably sharp or flat, but it was still playable, almost without conscious thought. Lily began Debussy's Claire de Lune, her mother's favorite lullaby, her grandmother's fading memory. As she played, the years seemed to fall away.
She was 16 again, practicing for her conservatory audition.
Her mother sitting in the armchair nearby, smiling with quiet pride. When the last note faded, Lily realized her face was wet with tears. A sharp knock at her door startled her. She quickly wiped her eyes and went to answer it. Her landlord, Mr. Patel, stood in the hallway, arms folded across his chest. "Miss Chen, I've had complaints about noise." "I'm sorry," Lily said. "I was just playing piano, yes. Quite beautifully, I might add." His stern expression softened slightly. "But the walls in this building are thin, and Mrs. Watkins next door works night shifts. She needs to sleep during the day." "Of course, I understand. It won't happen again." Mr. Patel hesitated. "My daughter is learning piano. Maybe if you're interested, you could teach her?"
"I could take it off your rent. Another opportunity, another decision."
Lily felt overwhelmed. "Can I think about it?" "Of course." He turned to leave, then paused. "That video of you on the internet my wife showed me. You have a gift." After he left, Lily leaned against the closed door, the word gift echoing in her mind. Her talent had once been a source of joy, then a painful reminder of loss. Now it was becoming something else entirely, a complicated responsibility she didn't know how to handle. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a reminder about her upcoming music theory test. Reality crashed back. She had work in the morning, studying to do, bills to pay. She couldn't afford to get lost in might-have-beens. The next day, during her lunch break at the diner, Lily finally called Victoria Reynolds. "I've been thinking about your offer," she said when Victoria answered, "but I need to be realistic. I have responsibilities that won't wait for me to chase a dream I gave up years ago." "I understand that better than you might think," Victoria replied. "That's why I wanted to discuss some concrete possibilities. The scholarship would cover tuition for part-time study. You could continue working while you take classes." Lily felt a flicker of hope, quickly suppressed. "And my grandmother's care facility, my rent? The medication she needs that insurance doesn't fully cover?" Victoria was silent for a moment. "Those are valid concerns, but there are other resources. The teaching position with Thomas Wu's program, for instance. It pays well and the hours are flexible. I don't have teaching experience." "But you have life experience. You know what it means to fight for your art against practical obstacles. That perspective is valuable to students who face similar challenges. It was a compelling argument, but Lily's instinct for self-protection was strong. I need time to think about all this. It's happening so fast. Of course, Victoria said. But don't take too long. The fall semester starts in 6 weeks and the scholarship committee meets next month. After hanging up, Lily checked her messages. There was a text from Robert Westbrook, which surprised her. How had he gotten her number? Ms. Chen, I'm hosting another charity event next month. The theme is hidden talents. Would you consider a repeat performance? My guests were quite taken with your playing. Fee negotiable. The irony wasn't lost on her. The man who had compelled her to play against her wishes was now politely requesting her services, as if she were a professional performer worthy of respect. Before she could respond, another message appeared, this one from Joe's Diner. Friday night piano trial run approved. 6-9 p.m. $150 flat fee plus tips. Opportunities were piling up, but they were pulling her in different directions. The diner wanted a crowd pleaser, someone to entertain customers with recognizable tunes. Westbrook wanted a novelty act, a Cinderella story to impress his wealthy friends. Victoria and Wu offered something more substantial but more demanding, a return to serious music, to the path she had abandoned. And through it all, the practical problems remained. Her grandmother's care cost nearly $4,000 a month. Her rent was due in 2 weeks. The tire on her ancient car was making an ominous noise that couldn't be ignored much longer. That evening, Lily sat at her kitchen table with a notebook, trying to make sense of her options. She created columns: keep current jobs, add diner piano nights, teach piano, part-time conservatory. She listed pros and cons, calculated potential income against hours required, tried to find the perfect balance that would allow her to both survive and pursue music meaningfully. The numbers refused to cooperate. No matter how she juggled them, something had to give. She couldn't work full-time, study, teach, practice, and still care for her grandmother. Something would have to be sacrificed. As she stared at the rows of figures, Lily realized that what looked like a simple practical problem was actually something deeper. The real question wasn't about scheduling or finances. It was about identity. Who was she now? The dedicated granddaughter? The struggling student? The viral sensation? The serious musician? Or was she still that 17-year-old girl, poised on the edge of a promising future, before life had intervened with its harsh lessons about duty and loss? Her phone buzzed with yet another message, this one from Thomas Wu. Rehearsal pianist needed for youth orchestra. Saturdays 10-12, interested? Lily set down her pencil and closed her eyes, the weight of possibility pressing on her chest like a physical thing. Everyone wanted something from her. Everyone saw potential, opportunity, talent. Everyone except herself. When she looked in the mirror, she still saw someone who had failed to keep a promise. To her parents, to herself, to the music that had once been as essential to her as breathing. Before she could make any more lists or answer any more messages, she needed to answer a more fundamental question. Was she brave enough to try again, knowing that failure would hurt even more the second time around? 3 months later, Lily sat backstage at Symphony Hall, smoothing the fabric of her simple black dress. The dressing room mirror reflected a face she barely recognized, not because she looked different, but because the look in her eyes had changed. The constant worry was still there, but now it was mixed with something else: determination, purpose, perhaps even hope. 10 minutes. Ms. Chen, called the stage manager through the door. Lily took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. She had performed at the diner for the past 12 Friday nights. She had played twice more at Westbrook's events. She had even given 4 piano lessons to her landlord's daughter. But tonight was different. Tonight was her debut as a featured soloist with the City Symphony's community concert series. Her phone buzzed with a text from Debbie. The whole diner crew is here. Front row left side. You got this. Another message followed, this one from Victoria. Full house. Thomas just arrived. Your grandmother is settled in the box seats with my husband. Her grandmother. Lily closed her eyes, remembering their conversation when she had finally made her decision. I'm going back to music, she had told her, sitting beside the bed in the care facility. Not just playing at the diner or at parties. Really going back. Her grandmother had studied her face. What about the money? The bills? I'm figuring it out, Lily had replied. I got the scholarship Victoria told me about. I'm teaching 3 students now. Mr. Patel is letting me practice at his church when it's empty. She had taken her grandmother's hand. It won't be easy, but I keep thinking about what Mom and Dad would say. They would say, follow your heart, her grandmother had said immediately. They always did, even when it meant leaving home, leaving you to come to a new country. Her grandmother's eyes had filled with tears. They followed their hearts to give you a better life. The best way to honor that sacrifice is not to play it safe. It's to live fully. The memory gave Lily courage now as she stood and made her final preparations. The past 3 months had been the hardest of her life. She had kept her morning shifts at the diner, but given up the catering work to make time for practice. She had moved to a smaller apartment to save on rent. She had started a strict budget, cutting out everything non-essential. There had been moments of doubt. The first time she sat in a class at the conservatory, surrounded by students mostly younger than herself, she had felt like an imposter. Her technique was rusty, her knowledge of theory spotty at best. But Thomas Wu's words had come back to her. We are all students, so she had studied. Practiced until her fingers ached and her back screamed in protest. Stayed up late reading theory texts after working all day. And slowly the music had come back to her. Not just the notes and the technical skill, but the joy, the sense of connection to something larger than herself. A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. Come in, she called. The door opened to reveal Robert Westbrook, looking somewhat out of place in the backstage area in his expensive suit. Mr. Westbrook, Lily said, surprised. I didn't know you were coming tonight. I wouldn't miss it, he replied, seeming uncharacteristically hesitant. I brought you these. He held out a small bouquet of white lilies. Thank you, Lily said, taking the flowers. That's very kind. Westbrook cleared his throat. I owe you an apology, Ms. Chen. The night we met, I put you on the spot. I treated you like entertainment, not a person with genuine talent. It was disrespectful. The apology was unexpected. Lily studied his face, seeing genuine regret. You also gave me an opportunity, she said finally, even if your methods were unconventional. A small smile crossed Westbrook's face. Victoria Reynolds has been quite clear about my methods. She's a formidable advocate for the arts and for you. She's been incredibly supportive, Lily agreed, as she should be. Talent like yours deserves support. He paused. Which brings me to my second reason for coming backstage. I've been working with the Symphony Board on a new initiative, a fund for musicians facing financial hardships. Medical bills, family care, housing. He looked at her meaningfully. The kinds of practical obstacles that too often derail promising careers. Lily's breath caught. Was he saying what she thought he was saying? The fund's first grant will cover your grandmother's care facility costs for 1 year, Westbrook continued. No strings attached. No publicity requirements, simply the resources you need to pursue your music without having to choose between your art and your family. Tears sprang to Lily's eyes. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep playing, Westbrook replied simply. That's all the thanks needed. He glanced at his watch. I should let you prepare. Good luck tonight, though I doubt you'll need it. After he left, Lily sat in stunned silence. The weight that had pressed on her shoulders for years, the constant anxiety about money, about her grandmother's care, felt suddenly lighter. Not gone completely, but manageable. For the first time, she could see a path forward that didn't require impossible sacrifices. 5 minutes. Ms. Chen, called the stage manager. Lily stood, smoothed her dress one final time, and walked toward the stage. As she waited in the wings, she could hear the rustle of the audience, the quiet tuning of the orchestra. Thomas Wu was conducting tonight, a program featuring young and emerging artists. Lily was the final soloist, performing Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, a piece about darkness and redemption, about finding one's way back after loss. When her name was announced, Lily walked onto the stage with her head high. The applause was warm, curious. Many people were here because they had seen the viral video or read the articles about the waitress pianist. They came expecting a good story. Lily was determined to give them great music instead. The spotlight was bright, but she could just make out the left front row where her friends from the diner sat. She could see the box where Victoria had escorted her grandmother, and there in the third row center was Mr. Patel with his daughter, the girl's face shining with excitement at seeing her teacher on stage. Lily sat at the piano, a magnificent Steinway that responded to her lightest touch, and placed her hands on the keys. She nodded to Wu, and the orchestra began the dark, rolling chords that opened the concerto. When it was time for the piano to enter, Lily took a deep breath and began to play. The music flowed through her. Every hour of practice, every moment of doubt, every memory of her parents and the sacrifices they had made, all channeled into each note. The first movement spoke of struggle, of the difficult road that had brought her here. The second, with its famous melody, told of longing and hope. And the final movement, with its triumphant theme, celebrated resilience, the ability to begin again after loss. As her fingers flew across the keyboard, Lily felt as if she were telling her own story without words, sharing it with everyone in the hall. She was no longer just Lily Chen, waitress, or even Lily Chen, pianist. She was herself, complete and whole, bringing together all the parts of her life into something new and meaningful. When the final chord sounded and the orchestra fell silent, there was a moment of complete stillness. Then the audience erupted in applause, rising to their feet. Lily stood, her legs shaking slightly, and bowed. The orchestra members tapped their bows against their music stands in approval, a musician's highest compliment to another musician. As Lily looked out at the standing crowd, she caught sight of her grandmother in the box seats, tears streaming down her face as she clapped her gnarled hands together. Victoria stood beside her, beaming with pride. Even Westbrook, typically reserved, was applauding enthusiastically. Wu gestured for Lily to take another bow, and as she did, she realized that the journey wasn't over. There would still be early mornings at the diner, late nights practicing, bills to worry about when Westbrook's grant ran out. The path she had chosen was never going to be easy, but for the first time in years she was moving forward rather than simply surviving. The music that had been silenced by grief and practical necessity was speaking through her again. And people were listening. Later that night, after the reception and the congratulations after taking her tired but happy grandmother back to the care facility, Lily returned to her small apartment. The upright piano no longer sat covered and silent. The lid was open, sheet music spread across the rack, a metronome on top, a notebook filled with lesson plans beside it. She sat on the bench. Not to practice, she was too exhausted for that, but simply to feel the rightness of being there, of having found her way back to herself. Her phone buzzed with one final message for the night. It was from Thomas Wu. "You honored the music tonight. And yourself, rest well. Tomorrow we begin working on the Mozart concerto. 10 a.m., don't be late." Lily smiled, set the phone down, and gently closed the piano lid. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new music, new opportunities to balance the practical and the passionate sides of her life. But tonight she would sleep knowing that the waitress who had been compelled to play at a millionaire's party had found her own voice at last, and it was beautiful.